Good evening, folks who are coming into the room. Thank you for being here with us. There is a poll. We ask that you complete that so we see who is here and so we could follow up as needed. And we want to give people a couple more minutes to trickle in. Appreciate your punctuality. Those of you who were here right at 6 or before, you're going to hear me say it again as people trickle into the room. Please complete the poll so we know who's here. Thank you for being here this evening. Glad to be in this space with you all. All right, we're going to get started in about 1 minute. We gotta want to let a few more people find their way to this space, and then we will jump in. Great to see so many familiar names, some new names of folks who decided to join us this evening. We appreciate your presence and attendance. Please complete the poll and we'll get started in a few seconds. All right. Good evening again. If you haven't got a chance to complete that poll, we ask that you do that so we know who's here and who we should follow up with, how to get in contact with you, and all that great stuff. And I know there's a lot of places that you could be right now, but you decided to spend some of your evening with us, and we deeply appreciate that. You also have a question and answer feature. We ask that as questions come up for you tonight, you post those in that Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end of this session. If there are questions still lingering afterwards, we do plan to follow up via email, responding to anybody's questions that we weren't able to get to before we close out for time. So many of you out there have heard of He Is Me Institute, and some of you have even worked with us. If you have worked with us or connected with us in the past, first of all, I want to say thank you because your engagement has really helped us figure out what is needed in the field when it comes to supporting and sustaining Black male teachers. So throughout tonight, you'll hear about how your engagement has helped us to deepen our impact. I also want to name that some of you are not based in Massachusetts, and you see we are thinking about this in terms of the state of Massachusetts, but I want to say that that's okay. Although the state is our primary focus, we do have work outside of the state and will continue to do so as we see fit. For everyone, by the end, you should know why Black male teachers matter and what you can do to better support them to and through the profession by having us join you on your efforts. So with that being said, this is the conversation about the Black Male Teacher Initiative, a brand new initiative coming out of the He Is Me Institute. So today's agenda, we'll talk about three big topics. The first is what we already know from research that's in the field, from us going out and talking to folks, and learnings from our programs that we've already implemented. Then we'll move on to what we're doing to respond to what we already know. And you'll hear from one of our key partners and our past participant in our program so you can hear firsthand how the program has impacted the people that we work with. And then lastly, we'll talk about how we make an impact, how we work with you, and what we're doing more broadly to support your endeavors to recruit and retain Black male teachers. As we head into this conversation, I want to center a mindset of collective impact. In her book, The Sum of Us, Heather McGee said, we've got to get on the same page before we can turn it so that we can move forward with a new story together. In this essence of working together, knowing what everybody else is doing, having some shared information is really key to our model and our method of making an impact that we are all here to learn more about. So thank you for leaning into that mindset as we get started. Before we talk too much about He Is Me Institute and our work, I want to tell you a little bit about myself through an anecdote. So, as an administrator of a high school, I felt that it was really important for me to continue teaching in the classroom. That is why most educators go that route, is because they want to have that direct impact on students. So this particular year, seniors at the school had to take a college course, like going to a college campus and taking a course, or they were able to take what we call senior seminar, which is a college level course taught at the school. So I developed and taught two of these senior seminars. One was financial literacy and one was ethnic studies. So for ethnic studies, students learned about various inequities within our social institutions, as well as successes to try to mitigate those inequities. These included things like gaps in wealth, educational attainment, health, incarceration, and a number of other things. So throughout the semester, we looked at a bunch of different research, we looked at data, and we started on the national level. We looked at this research on the state level, we looked at it on the city level, and we looked at it on the school level. As we got closer to the end of the semester, the students were assigned to connect multiple of these inequities and then do deeper research on an intersection between them and conducted some presentations. So this could be, some students were interested in how does housing inequity connect to education inequity? Some did more than two when they connected, say, incarceration, housing, and wealth, and did that deeper research about that intersection between those three. So at the very end of the semester, they put together these presentations and set up in the cafeteria in sort of a fair style, think about like a science fair. And then we invited teachers and students from all over the building to come in and learn more about this research. One of my favorite projects was like an interactive race that one student had. It kind of reminds me of the board game Life, where Chutes and Ladders, where things could happen along the way that set you back, and most of the things were completely out of your control, which is kind of how the cards landed. But nonetheless, they all were able to really elevate the inequities that they thought were most important and think about possible solutions and recommendations to avoid these inequities and kind of dig ourselves out of that hole as a society. So by the end of the semester, as I did with every class, I asked for feedback on the course and myself as an instructor. And the most common feedback was really interesting. It was a question, and it was, why are we learning about this so late? And why are we just now learning how to do research? Unfortunately, I did not have an answer for them, but I told them why I did it. And it was because, one, I knew that this content was really important. And two, I believe that they were brilliant enough to do this college level critical thinking work. In fact, according to a research by Donors Choose, most Black teachers want to teach a curriculum that affirms the racial and ethnic identities of students of color. So that helps to me explain why the curriculum was so important to me. Another thing that I now know is many teachers of color believe that their students could rise to the occasion of doing this higher level critical thinking. I knew it was going to be important for them now and later along in their post-secondary journeys. Um, it wasn't until maybe the last year when I realized, or the last couple years when I realized how common this mindset was that I had of other teachers of color. So many Black teachers have higher expectations and more positive perceptions of Black students. They are 12% more likely to predict that Black students will graduate from high school and 30% more likely to expect them to obtain a 4-year degree. I named this because what we think of students in high school and before that shapes how we support, teach, and develop them. I remember a student who I did not teach, but I had a really good relationship with. The student was brilliant. You can find them in a corner reading a book at any given moment of the day. But despite that, they were really disengaged in school. So disengaged to the point where they would simply walk out the front door at 11 a.m. They're like, I'm just over it. I'm out. So one day I was talking to the student, trying to learn more and figure out what was going on and how we could get them re-engaged. And they said something that really stuck with me. They said that their advisor, who was also their teacher, did not care about their learning. And that kind of blew me away because this is also a teacher that I coached. So I knew the conversations that she was having about this student and how to re-engage them. So I asked the student, why do you think that she doesn't care? Her answer was simple. She said, because she let me do whatever I want. I could put my head down. I can walk out. I don't have to do any work. Because I can do what I want, I know this teacher doesn't care. The student was Black and the teacher was white. Now, I don't know how true it was about the teacher caring. I can't get in her head or feel her emotions, but nonetheless, that's what the student perceived. Again, the way that Black teachers view the support Black students has a direct correlation with their graduation rates because Black teachers then set them up for success. And one of those ways is accountability. In fact, with just one Black teacher, Black male students are 39% more likely to graduate high school. When that Black teacher is also a male, the graduation rates grow even more. So this information alone supports the idea that if we have more Black teachers, particularly Black male teachers, students will generally do better in school. And many schools know this. That's not news to a lot of folks out there. And fortunately, many Black males are interested in teaching. But there's another layer to this problem, and that is one of retention. So after Black males complete a teacher training program, like a college degree in education or a teacher residency program, most of them don't teach, or they start to teach and then they leave. There are many factors related to this, such as inadequate professional development, hostile school environments, the lack of mentorship, challenges in passing certification exams, and few opportunities to be teacher leaders. All of these things contributed to their attrition. By the end of their first year, Black male teachers are 5 times more likely to leave the classroom, and that leaves just over 1% of teachers in the country identifying as Black males. So it's safe to assume that most students do not have Black male teachers, and that is correlated with graduation rates, particularly among Black male students. Part of this is because when Black male teachers are scarce, Black male students feel marginalized, alienated, and rejected when they are academically successful. So when we zoom into what's happening in the state of Massachusetts when it comes to graduation rates, we did some work to look at the Department of Education's graduation over the past few years. and Black males consistently graduate at lower rates than students overall. There have been there's been recent research about males across all races and ethnicities, and it highlights the concerns around a declining success of boys in school more generally. So taking that into account, we looked at, well, what about other races of boys compared to students overall? When we look at white male graduation rates in Massachusetts, they almost mimic the rates of all students graduating. So I named that to name, even if that is true, that there's a growing concern around boys in schools in general, they still graduate at higher rates than Black males. So given this information, we wanted to figure out how to change these trends. We were curious to learn where the greatest impact could be to get more Black men in the classroom. Is it their earliest experiences in school when they're first learning about what their relationship is with school? Is it something in the middle or high school years when children really start to define their own identities and figure out who they want to be in the world? Is it in college when folks are making those really imminent career choices? Is it with teachers who already decided that this is the profession for them? They just need some extra support. So there were a bunch of questions that we needed to figure out about how to move the needle. And so to put it pretty vaguely, we did some stuff in the first few years of He Is Me Institute to just see what works. And there's some good news. Uh, a lot of the things that we explored did work. When we started with different variations of what is called the I Am King program, and we're going to talk more about our programs in a bit, but this is a youth serving program, and aspiring Black male teachers, college, high school, will teach this curriculum around social emotional learning to younger Black boys. Every instructor who we've had of I Am King for the past 4 years indicated an increased confidence in teaching. So we know something about the I Am King program makes Black males feel good about the teaching profession. Last year, we started doing some of our college fellowship work. This year, we fully launched our college fellowship, and most of them said that that program will help them be a more effective teacher. Again, we're knowing that something is working in the programming. And when we think way back to spring 2020, that very first group of college students that we worked with, 80% of them went on to become teachers. Some of them now are already in teacher leadership positions. So while this information is promising, we recently learned that a lot of folks in Massachusetts are doing things to increase the number of Black teachers. And a lot of it worked. Unfortunately, though, it's still not enough. The Wheelock Educational Policy Center released a report earlier this month about teacher diversity in Massachusetts. One thing that they pointed out was over a 10-year period, we as a state doubled the number of teachers of color. You can see on this graph, looking at those light blue bars, from 2012 to 2022, there was a 3% increase in representation of teachers of color compared to the total teacher population. They also did some future projections. And they said, at this rate of whatever we're doing to increase teacher diversity in the state, we will see another 4% increase in representation by 2030. In and of itself, that growth is a very positive thing. But there's more to the story, and that is in the dark blue bars when we look at student diversity in Massachusetts. In that same 2012 to 2022 period, student diversity increased from 33% to 45%. And the projection is that over half of our students will be students of color by the year 2030. Now, I named this because although teacher diversity is improving, the gap between student and teacher identity is expected to grow by 2030. So simply put, we're doing good work as a state to diversify the teaching force, and it's still not enough. We have to do more, including he is me. So we look at, well, do people want more? Which is a very important question. And for us, that means yes. So we've talked to various institutions, we've talked to individuals, we've talked to Black males, we've talked to our current participants and partners. And when we look aggregately, people do want more from us. We see this 82 number has grown since this slide deck was created, but nearly 100 organizations have signed up saying, we want to work with you. We're not sure how yet, but we want to do something. They know they want to improve their Black male teacher pathways. We have over 700 Black males turning to us saying, how can you offer more support for me in my profession or on my path to becoming a teacher? But this third circle is really interesting to me because we just saw on the previous slide or a couple slides ago that the people in our programs really enjoy them. They get satisfaction out of them. They believe that they are effective and they still want more. So for me, this says that they appreciate the work that we do and they want to deepen their engagement with us. All this said, what we know is that we need to do more looking at the research and people want more. So the question for us is, how do we do it? And that brings us to our approach. So given the impact that Black male teachers have, given the current landscape where we are in the education field, and I'm thinking about how we navigated the pandemic and are still trying to find our footing as a sector. Now, when we think about our early results from He Is Me Institute and the need and demand for more, our vision and mission aligns directly to those things. So ultimately, I'm looking at the vision here on the left. We want all students to learn from Black male teachers. We know their impact. We definitely want Black male students to learn from Black male teachers, but every student should learn from a Black male teacher. For a Black male to become a teacher, he needs to be engaged in his education early on. That's the best route, at least. He definitely needs to graduate from high school. He needs to enroll in and graduate from college. Most Black male teachers go that route after being able to explore teaching in some kind of way, whether that's a mentorship, tutoring, something like that. And then when he becomes a teacher, he needs to be supported in the profession. So to that end, our mission, now I'm looking at the right box, our mission is twofold. The first is we cultivate Black male teachers from the moment they start school throughout their careers. So this includes introducing them to the idea of what it means to teach and supporting them every step of the way. The second part of our mission is to coordinate matriculation pathways for Black males to transition from primary school, middle school, high school, college, and through their careers. And by matriculation pathways, I mean building relationships and partnerships between institutions so that he could seamlessly go from one program to the next, staying on a narrow path to teaching. We understand that this is a huge endeavor. There's a lot of folks who needs to be involved in that conversation. And with that said, we also understand that we cannot do this alone. So from here, what you see on the screen, we carved out more specifically, well, what is our role as an organization in this so that we have a better sense into what we're bringing to the table so that we can support you folks on the grounds working with Black males on a day-to-day basis. So as you know, the purpose of our work is to support Black males. I named some of the different buckets in how we segment out the Black male experience from those earliest days in schools all the way up to their career. Many schools want to support Black male students and teachers, but they struggle with the how. So that's where another piece where we come in. So our expertise is in designing unique programs specifically to meet the needs and desires of Black males and helping you implement those programs with the population of Black males that you work with. We also work with some very key partners who enhance our work to support your implementation. And lastly, we are continuously engaged in thought leadership about Black males and about education. So while our direct work does move the needle, it is just as important to bring awareness to this urgent need and add value to related conversations and to shape policies and practices to make this work possible. So we apply all four of these components to everything that we do. So on a very high level, I'm going to share with you our programs, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper into each one of them. So looking at these top three buckets, we segmented Black males into three sections, if you will. The first one is their preschool through 12th grade career, and that is where the I Am King program comes in. And I talked a little bit about that earlier on, and we'll dig into it in a moment. The second bucket, post high school, is college. In this fellowship that I also mentioned that we launched full scale this past fall. Lastly, are folks who are already career teachers, and we support them through the Black Male Teacher Network. Taken together, a Black male could have continuous touch points around becoming a teacher. And depending on who you are, you will see that a program is most fitting for you because of who you work with. And to ensure that a Black male can start in the I Am King program and matriculate into the fellowship and matriculate into the network, to make sure that that is happening seamlessly without gaps, we are going to start hosting these summits for institution leaders and representatives to develop these pathways and collaborations for Black males to stay engaged in the profession from as early as preschool. Before I talk about each program in a little bit more detail, I want you to understand that what we're about to go into is a journey. If you ever heard our Secretary of Education for the state, Dr. Tutwiler, he often says, change is a process, not an event. So please know that the Black Male Teacher Initiative is a multi-year endeavor that will take time commitment and investment. So with that said, I'm gonna jump into the I Am King program. This is for people who serve Black males in the P through 12 space. So youth serving institutions, this one is where your minds should be focused around. What's cool about the I Am King program is it has like a double-edged impact where high school students serve as instructors to younger students. And one way that we serve as a thought leader for this segment of Black males is by serving as a research advisor for a recent report called In Pursuit of Greatness. And it was released by the Latinos for Education here in Massachusetts. The report was released a few weeks ago. They held a webinar yesterday about teacher diversity. I'm gonna pause here because if we have any folks out there who have done the I Am King program and maybe you didn't have high school students, you had some other model, again, we thank you for implementing these programs, and you've taught us a lot about what works and how we should best position ourselves. So again, what I'm talking about here today is how we are engaging with the Black Male Teacher Initiative moving forward. The next program is the College Fellowship. We call it like a pre-teacher fellowship because this kind of tees them up for a teacher residency or something else down the line. So this fellowship program is for Black males in college. So colleges, universities, teacher prep programs, even this one is something that you may be interested in. We have partnerships with the Breakthrough Collaborative, University of Massachusetts Lowell, and the Shady Hill School. They all help enhance the experiences of our fellows in different ways. So when your students, your college students enroll in the fellowship, they get instructional training, they get teaching practice like over the summer, and they get identity-based professional learning. In one way that we serve as a thought partner for this segment of Black males is through our membership with the Massachusetts Education Equity Partnership, or MEEP. Right now, MEEP has a focus on some higher ed policy, a lot of focus on college affordability and tuition, and thinking about different ways that we get various people of all different backgrounds to college, through college, and we know that has a direct impact on a lot of the folks that we support through He Is Me Institute. The third program that I'll talk about is the Black Male Teacher Network. This one is for current Black male teachers. So if you're a school, in your district, this may be something that you're really interested in. Our partnership with the Teachers Lounge is opening up doors for more consistent and frequent engagement with current teachers. When your Black male teachers join the network, they receive unique professional development designed for them, access to affinity groups. Sometimes we even may be able to train them to then become leaders of affinity groups in their own spaces. And there's ample community building opportunities for them. One way that we serve as a thought partner or a thought leader for this segment of Black males is when we recently co-authored a white paper from the U.S. Commission of Social Status of Black Men and Boys, which is out of their Civil Rights Office. I don't think that's been released yet, but it has been written, so stay tuned. The last piece, I talked about how we tie all these programs together, and that is through our workshop summit. And these are for folks who support Black males across the pathway, across that pipeline. So these are for all education institutions and education adjacent institutions. That can be policy, advocacy, funding, research, you name it. This one is the one that you will be most likely engaged in. Our partnership with the Great Schools Partnership has allowed us to start the planning process to what will become an annual event to share with you the latest research, upcoming policies, and best practices related to supporting and developing and sustaining Black male teachers. When you attend a workshop summit, you will improve and co-design the programs that you need to develop and support Black males. Also in that space, and through some follow-up conversations, you will start to build connections with other institutions to figure out the pathway for a young Black male student to become a Black male teacher by engaging with the various institutions along the way. Think about literally passing off a Black male student from this institution to that one until he has his own classroom as a full-time teacher. One way that we serve as a thought leader for this ecosystem is through op-eds and interviews with large media outlets such as Good Morning America and CNN. Now I've talked about all the programs, and that's a lot. So I'm going to step back and think about this in full. What is the trajectory? So let's think about it from an individual person. Say that there's a 4-year-old Black male, let's call him Jordan. Jordan just started preschool. He's able to be a participant in the I Am King program because his local community center implements the program. So every year from preschool through 8th grade, Jordan is learning some social emotional development from a Black male high school student. When Jordan goes to the 9th grade, he's then hired as an I Am King instructor. Now he's teaching younger boys the same curriculum that he just went through for the past 9 years. Congratulations, Jordan. He graduates high school, goes on to college, and now he joins the fellowship. He's engaging in the fellowship, which includes college courses that get some credits. He also gets additional training and teaching practice over the summer. Programs like our partners at Breakthrough help out with that. He's even more immersed in teaching when he attends events such as the Future Teacher Institute that's held by Shady Hill every year here in Massachusetts over in Cambridge. After Jordan graduates college, he then enrolls in a teacher residency program, or he may go straight to the classroom as a teacher, depending on what he did in college in terms of major. Either way, he becomes a member of the Black Male Teacher Network. There, he receives ongoing development in leadership opportunities, keeping him engaged in the profession, making sure he's getting upskilled, coached, and supported, and ultimately a better teacher for his students. Jordan was able to join and stay on this teaching path because all of those institutions, his community center, his college, and then the school district that he works with, all of them collaborated through their work with the Black Male Teacher Initiative to ensure that Jordan had a very clear next step. In the meantime, those institutions are continuously learning how to improve their programs and practices and how to collaborate better so the next generation of Jordans can go through that same pathway and ideally do so even better with more impact. So that's kind of how we work and how we see the trajectory of the Black Male Teacher Initiative as a whole. And when we look back to where have we already been and what we are planning to do, um, I could say right now that we are too young as an organization to have a Jordan who started in preschool, who is now a teacher. But we have implemented programs across the state that the Jordans will eventually benefit from. So these dark blue pins on this map shows you some places that we've already implemented some of our work. And again, we've also done some things outside of the state of Massachusetts. But when we just look at the Commonwealth, you see those dark blue pins where we've already done some of this work and had some partnerships. The light blue ones is where we've heard from people saying, hey, I need this program. I want this program. And so that's where our eyes are moving forward. When we look over at the right box, we see that only 5% of teachers in Massachusetts are Black males, which is more than a national average, but still subpar. We also see that there are about 265,000 Black males in kindergarten through college. So the opportunities for impact are tremendous. And we cannot understate that, cannot overstate that, and we cannot miss this opportunity that we have in front of us. So I've talked about some of the work that we do, and we actually have one of our past fellows who's going to join us and tell us a little bit about his experience. So I'm going to ask if Jet can come on screen. Jet was a part of our program last year. Great to see you again. I'm going to give him about 5 minutes to talk through his experiences and some things that he got as a partner or as a participant in our program. Jet, saw you.
Awesome. Can y'all hear me?
Hear you great.
Awesome. Hi, y'all. My name is Jet. My full name is Shatari, but I tell people to call me Jet. I am currently a senior at Northeastern University, studying cell and molecular biology, and my minor is Africana Studies, and I'm in my last semester. I worked with the He Is Me program last school year. It was a very rewarding experience. I was at the Kinney School. I had about 10 students, and overall, it was a very good experience. I felt like the onboarding of that experience was very well. I had the proper support and 1 second. Am I still presenting? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I saw something in the comments.
Oh, yeah.
Um, The onboarding was amazing. I had support. We had a curriculum that was really useful because I had never taught before. I come from a family of teachers. My mom is a teacher. Both of my grandmothers were teachers. And I felt like just having that extra support and like guidance on what I should have the students do was really like just pivotal and monumental and kind of just helping me establish rapport and a good connection with the students while also having something concrete to teach them with. I think one story that I often like refer back to when I'm telling people about my experience with the program. I remember there were a few kids in the program that had some behavior issues at first, and I remember just walking home and being like, "Mom, I'm so frustrated," and I'm like, "I don't know how to get through to like some of the kids." I'm like, "I'm just a college kid. I don't like know what I can do to try to." Establish a better connection with them and try to show that like I want to be a good influence for them and I'm here for them. And my mom just said, just this is what teachers go through every single year. Just give it time, keep on showing up for the kids. Remember, you were a student not that long ago, and you probably gave some teachers trouble as well. So just keep on showing up for the kids, and eventually they will see that you're here for them. And sure enough, I remember 2 weeks later, um, one of the administrators, as I was walking in the school, one of the administrators was like, Jed, the students have been asking about you all week. And it kind of took me off guard or took me by surprise because I was under the impression that, like, not that they didn't like me, but that I didn't make a connection with them because at that point it had only been a month. And this was, I believe, in like November of the starting year that I had initially joined the program. And so I think that was just an experience that kind of showed me like if you give it time and you allow students to or you allow younger children, because again they were like in third to fifth grade, pretty young boys, but if you just give them time and you're patient with them just like people were patient with me, that eventually you can make an impact on them. And I think it's also very important to say that I myself am not, I wasn't interested in becoming a teacher, but now I'm on the pre-med track, planning on applying to medical school this upcoming cycle. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I want to spend my gap year. And I decided that to start looking to some teaching opportunities where I can give back to students in a way that I did similarly to the He Is Me program, because it was a very fulfilling opportunity for me. And even though teaching is a very, very hard profession, I will never ever discredit that. I was very fulfilled at the end of those Fridays and knowing that the students had gotten something out of it, and knowing that they had learned that I'm a powerful Black man. I can do whatever I want as long as I put my mind to it. I think that was very fulfilling for me, and that's something that I want to continue to do even beyond my college years. And I think for anyone who wants to get involved in the He Is Me program or anywhere within the or anywhere within the I Am King program, I think that is definitely a sentiment that you will walk away with, is just knowing that you've made an impact on students' life or young men's life, especially as they look to a career in education, or even if they are just in education themselves. And yes, thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm so happy to be here, and I applaud the I Am King program for everything that they do.
Thank you, Jed. I appreciate you sharing your experience, and please know that we never give up on seeing if you want to teach. We need medical, we need people to teach the doctors, Jed. So we hope to see you engaging in our programs for the long haul. But yeah, your work was very impactful. I've visited you at the site with the students, and just seeing those interactions were really good to see. So thank you for sharing that with our audience today. The next person that I want to bring on screen is representing one of our partnerships through the Shady Hill School. Dr. Daryl Wright is here. I'm gonna welcome him onto the screen to kind of talk about our partnership together, how it has been beneficial for us and for him to have this relationship. Dr. Wright, can you come on, show your face for the crew? Good to see you.
It's good to see you as well, Robert. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. And I'll pass it to you, Dr. Wright.
Oh, excellent. Well, let me introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Daryl Wright, and I'm the acting head of school at Shady Hill, which is in Cambridge, um, Massachusetts, of course. And I've served in education for now. This is my 25th year, actually. And so I've been in a lot of places, done a lot of things, principal, I've been a dean, obviously a teacher, a graduate assistant. And so I've served in various roles. And I've been at Shady Hill for the last 3 years. And actually, this year was my first year as the acting head. And the first question that Rob presented to me is why? Uh, why do you partner with He Is Me? And personally, and why as an institution? And I think firsthand is I don't believe that you can have meaningful communities and teaching communities unless you have diversity. And I think diversity, especially African American men, are critical. I think we talk about BIPOC. I think we talk about all the different ways in which we have diversity. But I think if we're going to want to address some of the racial history of the United States of America, we do need to be specific. We do need to talk about and encourage and support and create programs that support our Black men. And so this program is very important because I think they're very targeted. I think that I appreciate the courage to be able to say that we're supporting Black men. And I think in order to have healthy communities, Black men need to be a part of them. And so I think He Is Me is very intentional in that. And I think our school is very intentional in making sure that we have that type of diversity. Also, why I think it's important for Black men to be into education is because those who've actually had the opportunity to go through the system understand where that system maybe needs support because it's maybe weak in certain areas. And one of those areas I think sometimes is how do you build those true, authentic relationships? I think schools sometimes can be places that we go through that there's damage. And I think you can't fix problems if you can't see them. And I think that Black educators, I think Black men in particular, are feeling some of those things. And I think we go into this profession because we're like, man, how do I fix that thing when I was in school that didn't work for me? And it's always great to have someone, whether they're Black or whomever, to be able to identify and work with that experience in an authentic way. And I think Black men, at least for me, when I was in education, when I would be able to have conversations, sometimes we didn't even need to say anything. That relationship was there because we've had that very same experience. And as Rob has indicated earlier, you already see the success that actually happens when, in fact, a teacher has a person of color and more specifically a Black male educator. Also, too, I think the system is needing teachers, but I think the system's also needing leaders. And I think leaders are at the policy level. I think they're at levels like mine. And I just think of the ways in which I sit in conversations and we talk about either it be hiring or we're making policy decisions or we're talking about who's going to be on what committees. And I know how those structures work. And I know if you don't have individuals who have that teaching experience to understand pedagogically the methods and all of the structures of an educational system that can work, if you don't have that also experience of being a person of color to add to that discussion, sometimes that conversation isn't elevated and it's not discussed. So I think the why statement again is He Is Me is creating that pipeline and an intentional pipeline to bring individuals into the profession that have a personal experience of navigating education. The next question that I was asked to speak to a little bit is an impact story. Tell me why you noticed that the impact of partnering with He Is Me has been successful. I can name a few. First off, is having conversations with my board. I think they get excited when we talk about how we are as an organization being intentional at bringing diversity to our school. One of our mission statements is about racial justice and it's about social justice. And we're also talking about being wholeheartedly just. And because those are things that we put in our mission, we're looking for ways in which to do that in an authentic way. I think what gets us excited is that when I met Rob the first time and Janelle, they both came to our campus and I can just tell the way they moved, the way they talked, the way they engaged with our kids, they were about this work. And it excited me. And I was excited because I was thinking to myself, wow, they're really trying to create something that's going to have a significant impact. And so from the very first moment I met them, I understood that this was about trying to create a pipeline, trying to engage with individuals that want to be teachers and want to be educators. One of the things that I've said a lot, and I've talked about this with a lot of individuals within our teaching training program, is that people talk a lot about people leaving education. And for some, that's one of those things where people are saying, "Oh, I'm sad." But for me, I'm saying, well, this is a wonderful, beautiful profession, and if you need to leave, I give you all the energy to do what you need to do. But I'm also looking for educators who are coming into this profession, knowing what the obstacles that lay in front of us. And I think He Is Me is not trying to hide those obstacles. And I think people who are of color who are entering this profession also realize that the obstacles are difficult. But I think they're coming into the profession because they want to have a significant difference. And I think Rob, I think Janelle, I think the entire organization isn't in any way, shape, or form trying to hide from those obstacles, but confronting them head on. And I think my story is being able to share that story with my board and watching them embrace that and watching them think about ways in which we can be creative, whether it be monetarily or we set up systems with our teacher training center, whatever those things are, because we know firsthand when we bring individuals of color into our organization, they're going to have a significant impact. Another story I can share a little bit about why this is important is I just last week got a phone call from one of my fellows that was in our program last year. And what I love is that we've created this now network, and it's only been 3 years that we're working in this program where people are calling and having conversations and asking for mentorship, asking for, Dr. Wright, I'm thinking about going into this program, or I'm thinking about taking on this job, or I'm thinking about doing this new thing in education. I want to be the Secretary of State. What should I do? And I think what's happening is it's creating this structure where we can have this conversation, where I can give feedback, where I can not only talk about when we were in the fellowship, but we have this relationship to talk about how do you strategize and move on within your career. And one of the questions he was asking is, man, I want to be a Secretary of State. He actually didn't go into education, but he went and he's been teaching financial literacy classes. And he's kind of thinking, I want to be a principal. I want to be these other things. And my feedback to him is that if you're wanting to be a Secretary of State, if you're wanting to move into some of these roles, one of the things educators are going to look for is for you to be a teacher. They're going to want you to understand how to sit in a classroom and how to be able to move and and how to encourage, how to inspire, and how to lead curriculum. All of those things are important. And I think if you're going to do this at a policy level, or if you're going to do this at a principal or at even any level, those are critical years because I think you learn the rhythm and the patterns of what it requires to be a teacher. And I think that's important in a profession where you're going to be leading teachers. And what was great is that he was able to understand it, he was able to process it, and he was able to think. And I think what we serve, or at least what I hope I serve in this role as being a mentor for individuals that I'm seeing. I currently right now have about 6 to 7 fellows, and we meet monthly for seminars, and we have very specific questions in which we talk about identity. We talk about what does that look like to be in a classroom and to bring your full self. I mean, all of these conversations are ones in which I didn't get to have as an educator when I went into this profession. I kind of came in and learned it on the job and kind of dealt with those stressors that go along with that. But I think being in this role and being able to have those conversations with fellows who are going in, they're going to have and be much further along in that process than I ever was. And so I'm excited that I can be that. And I'm excited that the teachers who are the individuals who are in the fellowship are able to have those conversations so that they can prepare themselves to not necessarily have to deal with some of the challenges that I had to earlier on in my career. My next was my connection. Explain why the impact matters. It goes without saying. I think when we have when we have engaged, and we have educators who want to be in the classroom, they want to be in that school, they want to work with those kids, the impact happens because they want to be there. And as I said earlier, they know what it requires. And I think He Is Me again with the curriculum. We start with self. We talk about what that power looks like as a person of color and the space that you hold, and becoming confident in being able to tell those stories, but tell them in a way where we're also talking about education. We're also talking about the things in which you need to learn in order to navigate this system. And I think all of those things are valid. And I think it's in the curriculum, and I think it's in the conversations, it's in the ethos. And so I think when you do come out of this program, whether you do go into education or not, I think you have the spirit of wanting to be a mentor, wanting to be a supporter, wanting to be someone who's going to help uplift and pull others along. And so I think that's one of the things that I really, really, really enjoy and love, and think is how the impact is going to continue. And last but not least, tell me why other organizations should partner with ESME. I would say to you that if you're truly, because I oftentimes am always asked by other organizations, how do I recruit? How do I get people of color? How do I bring people in my organization that are of color? I mean, that's a frequent conversation. And my answer to them is, you're not going to bring people of color in your organization without people of color in your organization. You need authenticity. You need people who can look across the table and tell another individual that, hey, this is a safe space. You need individuals in your organization that have history within an organization to be able to have that conversation about, we will value you, we will treat you with dignity. And I think it's not the language, the words, all of the things that people are learning in terms of what's the right word to say. I think you need to have the action of having people in your organization that represent that authenticity. And I think if you have that in your organization, it won't be difficult for you to recruit quality people of color, because as anybody knows, quality attracts quality. And so I think if you have programs such as this that are developing from high school all the way up, quality educators, and you can bring those educators into your school. We won't be having that conversation of what do you need to do, what strategy or what thing you need to, what you'll have is individuals sitting in these roles, talking to other educators around why this institution truly meets its mission, why it's actually a diverse and wonderful place to work. But I think you need to have organizations such as this to create those pathways, because we haven't done that in education really well. And I think this is an organization that's doing that really well. Each year that I've been a part of this organization, we've continued to refine and get better. And I just only see things happening in the future that's going to continue to reinforce and make it even more spectacular, because I think that we have a lot of students who are looking to contribute and to give back. And I think this is a wonderful way in order to do that and also pull others along with you. And so with that, thank you, audience, for listening. And thank you, Robert, for giving me the opportunity to talk about how ESME has been so impactful to Shady Hill and how it continues to be something that we will partner with to do in the future.
No, thank you for sharing that. It feels like every time I hear you talk about this experience, I get a different level of energy, more context. I don't have much to add to everything you said, but I really do appreciate you including He Is Me in some of your work. We know Shady Hill has been around for a long time doing this, so to see the value in what we can bring to the table has been fantastic for our fellows. So thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And I can't imagine what we would be in terms of even looking at our teacher training center at this point as we look for our cohort for next year. Definitely we have some individuals that we're looking at out of the program. So thank you for bringing us wonderful talent.
Absolutely. For everyone else out there, I do want to draw a connection that I heard from Dr. Wright and from Jet a little bit earlier. It was this idea of this early experience. Like Jet talked about some of his challenges at the beginning, and Dr. Wright talked about what his experience was coming on as a teacher in his early in his career. And what I'm hearing is the experience in He Is Me, it kind of addresses those first year teacher challenges early. So by the time they get to the classroom, they are one or two steps ahead of their peers potentially. So that was good to hear that through line. Moving on, I mentioned thought leadership in a couple little ways. We talked about the programs. We talked about thought leadership a little bit, but there's a couple things I want to reiterate about thought leadership going beyond awareness building. Two quick examples of how we contribute to research and or policy. I mentioned this report in Pursuit of Greatness earlier that Latinos for Education released, where we were research advisors and they continue to lean on different ways to elevate that work, and so do we, because it'll be used in the field more broadly. The second thing that I want to name is that in a couple of weeks, Voices for Academic Equity will release a report about high school graduation in the state of Massachusetts. I also serve as a research advisor there. And as you see, we'll be on the panel for the release on March 13th. Shameless plug, you should definitely attend. But I named this because we have some people in this on this call who may be thinking, well, I don't work directly with Black males, so I don't have a role here. Maybe I think it's interesting, maybe I support, but I want to be the first to say that that's not true. We work with researchers, we work with policymakers, we work with other folks in the field to make sure that you're all informed about the needs, challenges, and successes of Black males. So these two reports will be in one case has already been used or leveraged to influence policy, like literal policies going through state legislature. They lean on research like this. Folks who want to expand on research pull existing things like these two reports. So our voice is not just in the direct impact on programs, but how do we take that information and ensure that the perspective and the experiences of Black males are present in spaces with people and documents that will have a bigger impact and influence. We're getting close to closing. I always like to take a moment just to thank some of our funders. Over the past 5 years, there's been a lot of grant makers and individuals who've seen the value, the impact, and the potential of our mission and vision and have joined us on the journey. Their financial support has made it possible for us to make that early impact that we talked about and that you heard about from our two guests and help us feel confident about our work in supporting you in recruiting, developing, and sustaining Black male teachers. So thank you to our funders and the many, many individuals who've also supported the cause. So now that you have more of an understanding about He Is Me and about the Black Male Teacher Initiative, there are really just three things left for you to do. The first is to scan that QR code or click the link when we send it in a follow-up email. And just like that, as soon as you fill out that short form, you're a part of the initiative. That is telling us that you care enough to learn more, to get more. So after you sign up, we'll gather some information from you, kind of figure out where you are, learn what your goals are, what your needs are, and that is our scoping process. From that, we'll take the information and co-design your specific programs, like what combination of I Am King, fellowship, workshop, summit, network, what's the combination that you need, what's the rollout, make sure that it's really specifically designed for you as an institution. And then we're going to help you collaborate with other institutions to build that matriculation pathway that we talked about a couple of times here today. Thank you for your engagement this evening. I know we shared a lot. Hopefully, you're walking away with a deeper understanding of saying this is the way that I need to or want to support Black male teachers, and this is the way that I could lean on He Is Me as a support. So now I'm going to bring on our Chief Impact Officer, Janelle Ingerman, on the screen. She's been fielding your questions as you've dropped them in the Q&A box along the evening. So Janelle, if you can come off screen, elevate some of those questions and we'll get these answers to you all, as many as we can right now.
Great. I'm muted, so that's good. So please feel free to continue to leverage the Q&A section with questions. There is some questions that I will raise, and I see there's still a couple in the chat, so I'll let them come in as you guys are formulating your thoughts. The process is pretty straightforward, and just to kind of double down, if you're interested in any capacity, no matter where you are in Massachusetts or not, or beyond, we highly encourage you to join the initiative and to learn more about how to engage in the process for partnership. Good question about applications for current college students in the chat. And so I'll just kind of reiterate that the process for next fiscal year really kicks off next month. And so in the next month is when folks in the initiative, especially, will learn about the application process for college students. And so again, just to kind of direct folks back to that membership or that kind of sign-on form, which is where a lot of information regarding the initiative will kind of funnel through. A good question about how we collaborate with teacher education programs. The short answer is it kind of depends. And so it is a part of our process for partnerships to really evaluate the capacity of any potential partner. A part of that scoping process definitely engages teacher education and prep programs. For example, we work with Shady Hill in a very specific way at the teacher prep level, and how they're able to support our fellows. And so again, if that is something that is of interest in someone who is representing the higher ed and especially the teacher prep space, there are ways to engage in the initiative, depending on kind of your goals and kind of who you serve at different levels. The process for suburban school districts to become partners is there's no difference in the process to become a partner for any type of institution. And so all institutions and stakeholders would essentially start with joining the initiative as a first step. And then from there, those who are interested in taking it to the next level of partnership will have the opportunity to engage in that scoping process with us. The end goal of that scoping process is to formulate a formal partnership based on our shared goals and contributions. I think Rob has some context to add. Feel free to jump on too. Like, I don't need to answer these if folks from EST have things to add. There was a question, I don't think it's still in the chat, around pricing for our partnerships. And so I'll just give a big kind of general high level around how we approach funding for our programs. And as you can see from the, a couple slides back that Rob shared, we do really work to obtain funding from our funding partners. And that's really to subsidize the cost for our program partners to offer our programs. And the bottom line to all of the kind of funding questions is that we never will charge a Black male directly to engage in our programs. And so funding does come from collaboration between our funding partners and our program partners. What that share is kind of to be determined based on who the partner is and what type of programming they'd be looking to implement. There's a question that says, what distinguishes He Is Me from other organizations who are also supporting Black males? Do you envision the need to always exist? And I really like this question. I'll start and Rob, jump in if you want to add to it. But my answer to this question is really the fact that our work is to support institutions to be really good at delivering programs for Black males. And so we kind of distinguish ourselves just based on the fact that we don't deem ourselves the direct program implementers, for lack of a better term. And so I guess we kind of talk ourselves out of the job in the long term, because, if we do our job right, correctly and effectively, the long-term goals is for our partners to be able to sustain these Black male teacher programs, for the long run. And so our approach is really more of a support than implementation, direct implementation.
Yeah, Janelle, I would agree and add that we're also doing everything Janelle said across the entire pathway. Whereas a lot of organizations may focus on a segment and there's a lot of value there. We've seen a lot of success. We've learned from a lot of those organizations. But our goal is for all of the parts to move in lockstep and not to be separated. So think back to that trajectory slide with the big arrow when I talked about Jordan. Ideally, within Jordan's community, his community center, his school, the college nearby, they all have a hyper focus on Black male teachers and Black male student success. And that is through their work with the He Is Me Institute.
Great. There are any other questions? Team, do you have any other thoughts that you think would be great to raise?
I see two questions I would like for us to address. One of them is, how do you define leaving the classroom? Is that the same as leaving the field of education? I think that's a really great question. So leaving the classroom, yes, that is when you are no longer a teacher. You may be an administrator, maybe you got a promotion. Um, and so that's not the same as leaving the field of education. And the reason we distinguish this, I love this question because there is a need, there is power in having Black males in leadership positions. There's a ton of research about the impact of a school leader and how that matriculates down to student learning and instruction. And what we're talking about at He Is Me primarily is the people who are delivering instruction for their students. So we look at who's leading the classroom, and we don't ding a person for getting a promotion, but we also think about what does it mean to be a teacher leader. This is no surprise, and this is true in any profession. The longer that people are teachers, the better they tend to be at teaching. So if we're always either having Black males leave for negative reasons or quickly get promoted to administration, they're not having a lot of time having that instructional impact on students.
Thank you for raising that.
Mhm. The other question, Janelle, I'm gonna pass to you. I'm in higher ed and an assistant professor. How do you collaborate with teacher education programs?
Thank you for raising that. I kind of touched on the general way that we partner with teacher education programs in referring to our partnership with Shady Hill Teacher Training Center. And so the reality of the opportunity is really around enhancing or contributing to our Black Male Teacher Fellowship for college students. And there are an array of ways to really get involved based on your institution's capacity, goals, and interests. And so with that, I would definitely encourage you to explore partnership with us through joining the initiative and engaging in the scoping process so that we can essentially identify the best way to offer programs to the Black men in your institution.
All right. Thank you all for your engagement. Thank you, Janelle, for fielding those questions. It's been great to spend some time with you all this evening. We hope to hear from you. Hopefully you scan that QR code. Again, you will get those in your emails following up. If you have any additional questions, you could always visit our website for some more information, or you could email us directly at hello@heisme.org. I'll put this in the chat for you. Quick way to get some questions answered right there. But otherwise, you all have a great Friday Junior. Good evening, and thank you again for spending some time and space with us.
Thanks, everybody.